The words "counterfeit credential" were already printed on the tamper-evident pouch when the Federal Credential Control Office had only begun to ring. At the visitor control terminal beside the front desk, Amara Keene's status no longer read Active External Audit. It read Issuer Revoked. Lieutenant Wade Halbrook's operator code appeared beneath the change. No revocation notice had arrived. No fraud alert had been issued. The person responsible for verification had not answered the telephone. Amara watched Wade place her identification inside the pouch. He pressed the adhesive strip closed with his thumb and set it beside the property printer. For 3 months, Amara had entered Westbridge Central Police Headquarters under a municipal accreditation assignment. The authorization was genuine. Her limited access was genuine. The cover allowed her to examine complaint routing and patrol records without revealing her assignment to the Federal Police Integrity Task Force. The task force had found complaint files marked withdrawn without matching forms. Patrol assignments had shifted after payments from Atlas Civic Security. Attachments connected to force complaints had disappeared before final review. Amara still needed the person directing those changes. That morning, Sergeant Helen Marlowe admitted her through the records corridor using the same authorization recorded during earlier visits. Wade stopped Amara on the return trip and asked for her credential again. A white male consultant had used the same entrance the previous week. He signed the visitor sheet and kept his identification clipped to his jacket. Wade took Amara's card out of her hand. He held it beneath the front desk lamp, turned it once, and asked why an auditor her age had access to internal records. Amara gave him the liaison reference and the issuer number printed on the back. Wade called the number. While the line rang, he ordered the access clerk to open Amara's profile. Helen moved closer to the terminal. The system offered 2 controls. Local access paused would suspend entry until verification finished. Issuer revoked meant the issuing federal office had canceled the credential. Wade selected the second option. Helen said the issuer had not confirmed anything. Wade told the clerk to print a custody label. Amara asked for the name of the issuer representative who had authorized the revocation. Wade said the matter was under verification. She requested a property receipt, the seal number, and the reason the card was being held instead of temporarily paused. Each question was quiet. Wade classified the questions as refusal to comply. Officer Micah Dorsey stood near the report counter with a stack of blank incident forms. He watched the telephone receiver remain against Wade's ear while the unanswered line continued to ring. Amara did not reach for the pouch. She stated that the credential was in Wade's custody and that no issuer confirmation had been received. Wade ordered her out of the building. Amara said she would leave the records area after receiving the custody receipt required for seized identification. Wade stepped around the counter. His first strike turned her face toward the records window. A paperclip tray shifted when Helen's hand struck the sill. Micah moved 1 foot forward, then stopped. Wade struck Amara again. She did not raise her hands toward him. She straightened her blazer and repeated the facts for those nearest the desk. The credential was active when surrendered. Wade had changed the status locally. The verification call had not connected. Micah looked at the floor. Helen looked at the sealed pouch. Amara left through the main lobby and entered a clinic 2 blocks away. From an examination room, she called Supervisory Special Agent Celia Voss. Celia asked whether a physician had documented the injuries. Only then did she ask who had changed the credential status. Back at Westbridge Central, Wade told Commander Douglas Fenwick that he had removed an impersonator from a restricted area. He ordered Helen to identify every file Amara had accessed during the previous 3 months. The front desk telephone rang again. Lydia Crane, from Federal Credential Control, requested Amara's credential number and Wade's operator code. Helen read both from the custody screen. Lydia checked the issuer record. The credential remained active. No revocation request existed. No fraud notice existed. No federal officer had authorized the word printed across the pouch. Helen Marlowe pulled the first access card from the pending replacement stack before Wade Halbrook returned to the records corridor. The card showed Amara Keene's entry from 3 months earlier. Authorized audit access. The approval code matched the liaison file. The expiration date had not passed. Wade placed a reclassification sheet on Helen's desk. The new status had already been typed. Unauthorized credential invalid. The effective date reached back to Amara's first morning inside Westbridge Central. Wade told Helen to sign the custodian confirmation and replace the original access cards before the end of the shift. Helen read the page twice. The Federal Credential Control Office had confirmed that Amara's identification remained active. Wade's local entry had not suspended one morning. His new document would turn every file Amara had reviewed into evidence of unauthorized access. Helen left the signature line empty. She gathered the original cards, placed them inside the records control safe, and logged the drawer number under the department's retention rule. She did not identify Amara's assignment. She preserved the version that existed before Wade tried to change it. Across town, Amara sat in an examination room while a physician measured the swelling along her cheekbone. A treatment form recorded 2 impacts and no defensive injuries to her hands. Supervisory Special Agent Celia Voss received the form through the task force's secure channel. She did not send federal vehicles to Westbridge Central. She issued a preservation notice. The notice covered credential history, property custody, printer activity, records access, patrol assignments, complaint dispositions, and communications involving Atlas Civic Security. Amara would remain outside the building. She would provide a statement after treatment and would not contact witnesses. Inside the precinct, Wade moved faster than the preservation notice. He summoned Officer Micah Dorsey and placed a draft statement in front of him. The first paragraph described a credential dispute. The second described Amara refusing to leave. The final paragraph contained a sentence Micah had not written. Subject attempted to seize credential evidence from command custody. Micah had watched Amara keep her hands away from the sealed pouch. He had also watched Wade strike her twice. His own first statement used the phrase physical contact. It did not identify who initiated it. It did not record that Micah had stood close enough to intervene. Wade pointed to the signature line. Micah did not sign. He took a blank form from another desk and submitted a supplemental statement through the state investigator named in Celia's preservation notice. He described the 2 strikes. He stated that Amara had not reached for the credential. He also recorded his own failure to step between them. The admission protected no one, including himself. At the Federal Credential Control Office, Lydia Crane prepared an issuer status certificate. The certificate showed credential active, no revocation request, no fraud notice, no lost card report, no authority delegated to Westbridge Central to change issuer status. The local change history identified Wade's operator code. He had selected ISSUER, revoked, before the verification call connected. Printer activity added a second time marker. The counterfeit credential label had been produced before Lydia spoke with anyone at the precinct. Wade had not misunderstood an answer. He had printed the answer he wanted before one existed. Helen received a copy of the preservation notice and opened the records control safe. The original access cards traced Amara's work through a narrow set of files. Atlas Civic Security invoices, patrol reassignment orders, complaint dispositions changed after supervisor review, attachments removed from force reports, consulting payments routed through a contractor account. Every entry matched the access authorization Amara had presented during her first week. The files Wade wanted classified as unauthorized were the same files that connected his unit to the contractor. Commander Douglas Fenwick entered the corridor near the end of the afternoon. Wade told him the federal office had confirmed a technical problem and that outside investigators were overreacting to a local access decision. Helen handed Fenwick the issuer status certificate. She also gave him the unsigned reclassification sheet and the original access cards. Fenwick compared the dates. Wade's explanation became shorter. A court liaison called minutes later. A preservation judge had authorized Fenwick and outside counsel to open the sealed assignment packet held in the commander's safe. The packet had remained closed for 3 months because Westbridge Central was part of the investigation. Fenwick broke the seal. The first page identified the operation. The second listed the investigating agency. The final line named the person assigned to work inside his headquarters. Assigned case agent, Amara Keene. The woman Wade had labeled an impostor had spent 3 months gathering evidence about him. The property pouch remained sealed when Assistant United States Attorney Rachel Klein placed it before the administrative panel. Counterfeit credential still crossed the label in black type. Inside was a card the issuing office had never revoked. Amara Keene sat at the witness table with her medical record and original authorization. She did not wear the credential Wade Halbrook had taken from her. It remained inside the pouch until the panel completed its custody review. Rachel separated the hearing into 3 questions. Who controlled the credential status? What happened in the lobby? What did Wade attempt to change afterward? Amara answered only what she had observed. She described handing over the card. She identified Wade as the person who retained it. She repeated her requests for the issuer reference, custody receipt, and seal number. She described the 2 strikes without adding motive. She confirmed that she had never reached for the pouch. When asked what discipline Wade should receive, Amara said that decision did not belong to her. Lydia Crane's issuer status certificate entered the record next. The credential had remained active. No fraud notice existed. No revocation request had been opened. Westbridge Central had authority to pause access to its building during a legitimate safety review. It had no authority to report that a federal issuer had canceled a credential. The local operator history showed Wade selecting ISSUer revoked before the verification call connected. The printer activity showed the counterfeit label appearing moments later. The unfinished property receipt contained no issuer contact, no legal basis for seizure, and no completed custody review. Wade's attorney described the sequence as an urgent security decision. Rachel placed the retroactive access reclassification sheet beside the pouch. That sheet attempted to turn 3 months of authorized investigation into unlawful entry. Sergeant Helen Marlowe testified that Wade had ordered her to replace the original access cards and sign the new classification. She had refused. The cards preserved in the records control safe matched every location permitted by Amara's authorization. Officer Micah Dorsey testified after her. He admitted that he had watched Wade strike Amara and had not intervened. He also identified the sentence added to his draft statement, claiming that Amara tried to seize evidence. She had not. Micah's cooperation did not remove his failure. It prevented that failure from becoming another false statement. The sealed assignment authorization completed the sequence. Amara had not entered Westbridge Central as an impostor. She had been the assigned case agent in an investigation involving altered complaints, redirected patrol assignments, and payments from Atlas Civic Security. The files Wade attempted to invalidate contained the contractor invoices, payment references, and supervisory changes already preserved under federal order. The assault did not prove every corruption allegation. The attempted reclassification connected Wade directly to obstruction once the audit reached those records. The panel removed him from command that afternoon. A later disciplinary hearing terminated his employment for assault, false credential reporting, retaliation, and attempted alteration of audit records. The State Certification Board revoked his law enforcement license after an independent review. A federal grand jury returned charges involving deprivation of rights, obstruction, falsification of records, and the contractor payment arrangement. 9 months later, Wade pleaded guilty to obstruction and deprivation of rights under color of law. The agreement required restitution for Amara's medical expenses and prohibited him from seeking another sworn law enforcement position. Atlas Civic Security lost its municipal contract. A court-appointed auditor matched contractor payments to patrol changes that had redirected officers away from selected business districts. Recoverable funds were placed under a restitution order, and the company was barred from bidding on city security work during the oversight period. Commander Douglas Fenwick also received a formal finding. He had allowed a unit under external review to control the status of the reviewer's credential. He was removed from precinct command and reassigned outside operational supervision. Micah received a suspension for failure to intervene. His supplemental testimony protected him from retaliation, not from accountability. Helen's earlier complaint about altered records was restored to the active oversight docket. The original access cards she preserved became the controlling audit history. The review then examined complaint files from Wade's unit, carrying 3 specific dispositions. Complainant withdrew. Attachment unavailable. Reviewer unauthorized. 7 files lacked the document required to support those labels. 5 complaints were returned to independent review. 2 excessive force findings were amended after missing attachments were recovered from archived storage. The affected residents received corrected notices identifying who had changed the original disposition. Amara's impersonation classification was deleted from the department system. The unauthorized access notation was removed from every file she had reviewed. Westbridge issued a corrected public notice stating that she had been an authorized external investigator when Wade confiscated her credential. The notice also confirmed that the issuing agency had never revoked the card. The earlier internal alert had described her as a suspected impersonator. The correction appeared in the same distribution system. The false version no longer remained without an answer attached to it. At the end of the custody hearing, Lydia checked the credential number against the issuer record one final time. A property officer cut the pouch beneath its original seal, removed the card, and placed it on a clean evidence tray. Amara inspected the surface and signed the return receipt. The officer signed beneath her name. The credential left the building in the hand of its lawful holder. Amara's probationary evaluation continued under the schedule established before the assault. She completed it on the strength of the full assignment record, not as compensation for what had happened in the lobby. Westbridge then adopted the external oversight credential protocol. Local supervisors could pause building access during a documented safety concern. They could not change issuer status. Only the issuing agency could declare an external credential revoked, fraudulent, or expired. Any disputed card had to remain with its holder unless an independent legal basis authorized custody. When custody was lawful, a receipt and seal number had to be issued immediately. An audited unit could not retroactively invalidate audit activity. Credential disputes involving an active review would transfer automatically to an external officer outside the affected chain of command. Months later, a new outside reviewer entered Westbridge Central. She presented her credential at the same front desk. The desk officer checked the expiration date and returned the card across the counter. The reviewer clipped it back onto her jacket before entering the records corridor. Amara crossed the lobby during a task force meeting and saw the exchange. She did not stop. The next outside reviewer entered through the same lobby. The unit under review no longer controlled whether her credential was real. This story is fictional,